Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, TheRumpledOne, coming to you on Tuesday, December the 10th. The year is 2024. Let's talk trading, tactics versus strategy with Walmart. These videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine and differ from Walmart's. Once again, let's make sure our risk management's in place, so we never lose more on any single trade than we are willing to lose. So Walmart, we talked about psychology and tactics, but you had mentioned after that video that, tactics and strategy aren't the same. You want to explain how you see it?
Sure. And the whole idea of in anything in life, it's not just trading, it's anything in life. If you have goals, you need to have a plan to get there, to get to your goal. Or at least, if you want to be successful, more times than not, you need to go and have some type of plan that's out there. And the way you put those plans together is, first off, you want to say, okay, what is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? So let's look at the trading world. Okay, is my goal to go and make enough money to live off of it as a means of providing for myself, my family, my whatever? Or is it my goal to go and just, something that I'm doing as a post-retirement type of thing, is that one, go and enjoy some time, free time, and maybe make a little bit of cash that you can go and use that for whatever things are fun in life? Or is it something other than that? You need to come up with what are you trying to achieve? What's the purpose of your trading? So that's the first step. Once you've done that, then you can start putting together a strategy around that, because my goal may be something totally different than somebody else's goal. For instance, I may have to say, because I'm doing this from the point of making a living, okay, I need to make X dollars a month. I got to make X dollars a week in order to survive, as opposed to somebody who's doing it as a hobby or something else, or even an investment. And so you have to go and look at things differently. So for me, for instance, this is the way I make money. This is what pays for the electricity, puts food on the table, that feeds me, my wife, and my kids, everything else in my life. And so I have to go and lay that all out. So I lay that out. And the strategy now is, okay, that's what I'm planning on doing. It's the overall plan where I'm trying to get to. But the thing is, now I have an overall goal and overall place I want to get to. Now what you got to do is you got to go and start putting tactics in place. What are you going to do to get there? So if you remember going back and looking at things, we all learned about this whole idea of what's my 10-year goal, what's my 5-year goal, what's my 1-year goal, and looking at those are your that's your strategy, and then how do I get there to go those achieve those things? Those are the tactics to use. Okay, and when we break it down to trading, we may start looking at, okay, what instruments am I going to go and trade? Or instruments am I going to trade? Are you going to be like me, where I only go and trade basically one instrument, pound dollar? Or you plan on going and looking at multiple instruments? I don't care what they could be, pound dollar, dollar yen, could be the S&P, could be anything. But you need to figure out what those pieces are. Then you got to go and figure out what's your methodology. How are you going to go and trade it? Are you short term, long term? And let's face it, if I'm sitting here looking at this as a retail type trader, I've come to the conclusion, and I may be wrong with this, but my conclusion is, as a retail trader, what I need to do for going and making a living out of this, because my account is not big enough to go and use certain types of tactics, go and support, a living wage. I can't be looking at, things like swing trades and things that are long term, because my account's not big enough for that. That's just something I've come to a realization of. And, but at the same time, if I do a lot of short term trading, in other words, doing flip-flop boxes, doing 2-box strategy, doing even, a rat trade, those type of trades, where I'm in and out of trades relatively quickly, meaning I'm in and out within the day. I'm in and out sometimes within minutes or even seconds sometimes. Well, that's a tactic that others use because I can make a bunch of money, or seemingly a bunch of money, in a very, very short period of time. That's a tactic that I put in place. And so how do I go do that? Again, I'm going to look at trades or methods that are very short term, in duration. Now at the same time, if I was, let's say my strategy was that I want to go and do this as an investment type of thing, I don't need to live off of this money, then, I can go and start doing things by looking at methods that, would be like shorting monthly opens and shorting weekly opens and holding for a long period of time. That's just not what I'm doing. Am I going down the right path for you, sir?
Well, I'm just wondering, so, because it sounds to me your strategy seems to be more of talking about the what you want to do, like you said, in this case, short-term trading versus investing. Your strategy is either to invest or it's the short-term trade, and then within the strategy, you then choose tactics, like you said. Maybe you're trading the buy zone, maybe you're trading the H4 open, maybe you're trading pivots. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. The only thing I would go and add to it is that your strategy may actually encompass other strategies. In other words, you may have an overall strategy, and then you may have a strategy underneath it. So what do I mean by that? Here's my strategy for going and taking trades. Here's my strategy for getting exiting trades. And then within that, then you have, methods or tactics that are within it to go and fulfill those, I guess I'll call this a sub-strategy.
I think you're going to confuse the listeners.
I know. I know I added a level of complexity there. But at the same time, it just for me anyway, I like to go and break things out. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, like I said, I think you might have lost a few people because I'm kind of scratching my head too.
Okay. In other words, I guess, what I'm saying is that, let's go and look at this militarily, okay?
Right.
And because let's face it, that's probably one of the biggest places where strategy tactics are used, because it's a literal life and death situation. Well, the strategy may be laid out, okay, these are the things I need to have in place in order to go and win the war, okay? This is a strategy for advancing. This is a strategy for retreating. This is a strategy, here's a strategy for going and, minimizing risk, or maximizing, some type of whatever. And then underneath those different areas, you may have a sub-strategy that would go and say, okay, if I'm going to minimize risk, I'm going to minimize what type of risk. I'm going to minimize risk to loss of life. I'm going to minimize risk to loss of material goods. I'm going to minimize risk to loss of civilian, population. And so you'll have those strategies. Then underneath each one of those, I'll minimize, risk to loss of resources, or, you may then have tactics underneath that would go and say, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm going to go and protect factories. I'm going to make sure that I put air defenses in place so that, the other side can't come in and willy-nilly go and bomb my factories or whatever, and put tactics in place to do that. So that's what I'm saying. You may have strategy on top of strategy on top of tactics. That's all I'm saying. So I know I'm complicating it a little bit, but at first we just put we go and only put a strategy and a tactic underneath it. Okay. But then I think as you develop as a trader, what happens is that you realize, okay, it's a little bit more complicated than I really wanted it to be. Yet at the same time, I want to keep it as simple as possible. So I may have a strategy, it's an overall strategy, and then sub-strategies, which then dictate which tactics I'm going to use to meet meet the objectives of those strategies.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it, a Google definition. It says strategy is the overarching plan or set of goals for achieving long-term objectives. It's about the big picture and the what and the why. It says strategies are difficult to change once they're set in motion. Tactics are the specific actions or steps taken to execute the strategy. It's about the how and the practical tasks that contribute to the larger strategy. Tactics are more concrete and easier to see than strategy, and they're easy to adjust depending on changing circumstances.
Right. And I would agree with every word of that. I wouldn't have a problem with any word of that. All I'm saying is that, you can go and look at things as a matrix or, and have multiple strategies at the same time. Or you can go and look at it in a hierarchy type thing where you have a strategy that sits on top of another strategy, which then sits on top of your tactic. And it's sort of like, it's sort of, you used to say this all the time. What are the things that you need in order to be a successful trader? What things need to be in place? And you would go and say things like, well, I got to go in and make sure that I have, I got risk management in place. I need to go and make sure that I have methods in place, and I need to go and make sure that I have, an exit plan in place. You have all those different legs, and I'm saying break those out and create strategies around those areas, and then go and create your tactics underneath each of those major areas. That's all I'm saying. And I like to look at it that way because, like the Google definition says, strategies, are very difficult to change, and for good reason, because you're trying to get from point A to point B. That's your strategy. Well, if I put those things in as strategies, it becomes very, very difficult to go and change things or change those things. And those are the things you don't want to change. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to be sitting there going and changing how you're getting from point, you don't want to change the goal of getting from point A to point B, but you may want to go change what tactics I'm using on the ground to get from point A to point B. And I can go, and otherwise what will happen is you're going to go and make risk management a tactic. And the problem with that is that my risk management plan is going to change, is subject to change. My risk management is not subject to change. I'm allowed to go and lose X percent or X dollars or X something, and that's it. I'm not allowed to change that. And so therefore it goes into that area of being a strategy as opposed to being a tactic.
Exactly.
And so, and I think that's one of the biggest failures of most traders. They talk about 98% fail, right? Or 29% fail, whatever the latest number is that they like to go and tout.
Right.
They try to sell you whatever gizmo. Well, the reality is the reason why it's so high, and I'd agree that it's very high. I don't know what the number is. The reason why it's so high is because, Trader Bob is jumping from method to method to method before figuring it out. And because of that, he's not sticking to he doesn't have a goal he's after.
Well,
it's sort of like you're going.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, we're almost out of time. We can continue this tomorrow. But what I was going to say, I think the reason for failure is that most traders don't have a risk management strategy that's separate from their entry strategy, like the rat zone, the buy zone, all these zone trades. Those are all tactics. Those are all entry. Now, but the thing is, you have to realize that you've got to protect your portfolio, and with that, It's not what you trade, it's how you trade.